Okay, I'd like to start by welcoming our awesome panel, whose names you see here: Rich Yadav, Mary Kay Costello, Mackenzie Calapa, and Silvia Hernandez Montero, and Gunther Beta. If you would please come up and take your seats. So thank you all for coming here today. The purpose of today is for us to really come together and come as close to the heart of the matter of one of the key aspects of the Hunger Project from our beginning to the current day and definitely into the future, and that's the art of partnership. Working in the big context of ending world hunger, now by 2030, with lots and lots and lots of organizations working together for that shared goal, hopefully with a shared methodology. And we'll be getting into that as we go further into today. So pull out your cell phones. We're going to do something really cool. We're doing a lot of technology today. We're live streaming this event on Facebook. So if you need to, email any of your friends to go to the Hunger Project website, they can join us remotely online. And we're also going to do some instant polling among ourselves. So first, pull out your phones, get to your browser, and go to this address, PollEV, that's for poll everywhere, pollev.com/THPglobal977. I didn't get to pick the whole name without spending $900, so that's why it's got a number of.
We already had answers. Oh my goodness.
So when did you first participate with THP? You can select one of these, and it'll automatically throw it up on the screen, except for live feed people that don't get to see the answers. So we got a lot of old timers with us today, and some new timers. Isn't this cool?
Wow.
But this isn't half as cool as the next one. It's up there. It's at the top.
Don't accidentally put in 1977 L.
Yeah, it is.
Global 977.
Global 977.
Yeah. Right. Global 977. Okay, and we've got more newcomers.
All right.
So, and you may have noticed you have this little card. That little card has the whole history of the Hunger Project on it. But we're now in our 5th decade and causing collaboration on purpose and at scale. And we'll be talking a lot about the art and, frankly, the science of partnership to make that happen. Okay. So, enter one word that expresses your understanding of the Hunger Project.
Words. What?
Sustainability, somebody wrote. Opportunity. And you can enter, if you want to enter the same word, it'll make that word bigger. And you can put in as many words as you want. Okay, now this is an open-ended question. You can type in, what would you like to get out of today? And they'll just stream past. There's one word, 50 words. I like these. Anybody still writing? Okay, I'm going to lock it down. Still tumbling in. So, where are we in ending hunger? For those of you who may be aware, as of January 1st, 2016, the world officially implemented or initiated a new set of goals, 17 goals to transform our world, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This package of goals covers people, planet, prosperity, peace, all those things were mentioned, and partnership. 5 P's, that is the pillars of the Sustainable Development Goals. They commented that all countries and all stakeholders acting in collaborative partnership will implement this plan. We are resolved to free the human race from the tyranny of poverty and want and to heal and secure our planet. We are determined to take the bold and transformative steps which are urgently needed to shift the world onto a sustainable and resilient path, which is a wonderful, bold, and frankly achievable declaration. But I have to tell you, the world leaders who signed this have no idea. Signing bold declarations is a great first step, but it is not going to transform the deeply entrenched social conditions that are giving rise to hunger. So recently, Peter Senge and 2 other writers did this wonderful analysis of how do you change a system. And obviously, if we're going to end world hunger, we need a big change in policies, in practices, and in resource flows. Big changes. And I think most political leaders kind of think, okay, I'll sign this document, and then maybe those things will happen. But it's highly unlikely. That because what needs to happen to change those is that you need a real big change in relationships and connections and in power dynamics. Power dynamics, that is a big one. Relationships, that's something we know something about, and it can alter those power dynamics. But underneath all of those is mindset, is people's mental models. As we know, the Hunger Project, from its inception, has been dedicated to transforming the mindset that considers hunger inevitable, that doesn't embrace the kinds of transformative, bold steps that they're talking about in the 2030 Agenda. We have 2 of our 10 Hunger Project principles are immensely relevant to this. Dr. Schindler, would you like to read aloud the goal 7?
Social transformation. People's self-reliance is suppressed by conditions such as corruption, armed conflict, racism, and the subjugation of women. These are all rooted in an age-old and nearly universal patriarchal mindset that must be transformed as part of a fundamental shift in the way society is organized.
So, a lot of us have been around this journey of the Hunger Project as it discovered, oh my gosh, the subjugation, disempowerment, marginalization of women and girls in our society is not merely a bad thing. It is at the very root of the kind of prevailing mindset that says it's okay for governments to not give any money to local communities, that says it's okay to rape and pillage the environment. All of that comes from that same deeply entrenched patriarchal mindset that we've got to transform, which requires transformative leadership. Transformative leadership is quite distinct from transformational leadership. With transformational leadership, and we've all experienced it, it's a great thing. It's that wonderful, inspiring, upfront leader that sets a bold goals, that sets clear objectives, that leads an organization to achieve great things. That's not what's missing. What's missing is transformative leadership. So who wants to read transformative leadership? Phil.
Thanks, John. 10, transformative leadership. Ending hunger requires a new kind of leadership, not top-down, authority-based leadership. Leadership that awakens people to their own power. Leadership with people rather than over people.
That's terrific. Thank you. Oh, yes. Thanks, John. So, our mission in the Hunger Project is twofold. We intend to end hunger and poverty by pioneering sustainable, grassroots, women-centered strategies and advocating for their widespread adoption in countries throughout the world. And until recently, we were way better at the first one than at the second one. But with this new set of goals, our board of directors, first of all, recognized in conversation with lots of organizations that we were not alone in recognizing that bottom-up women-centered strategies were the thing. In fact, there was starting to be a literature for an umbrella term that describes that long-change transformative process, gender-focused, community-led development, that integrates all of, well, at least 12 of the Sustainable Development Goals at the community level and empowers people to take charge of their own development. That's community-led development. And as an umbrella term, you know, we and every other organization that had gone on this journey, because there was no big scale money for that work, none of us were talking to each other, and we all felt alone. We all felt frustrated that no one was funding whatever we were calling with our own in-house jargon, epicenters or SDG unions, or I forget, Heifers is values-based, holistic community development. So we all had our own terms and we all felt alone. And so the Hunger Project saw that this was missing, and we started bringing people together in this movement to make this a mainstream priority of the world. Now that kind of alignment and movement building has been with us from the beginning, but we also probably haven't talked about it as much. But now we really see that the highest leverage action for the Hunger Project is to build the large-scale partnerships and alliances to empower gender-focused, community-led rural development everywhere it's needed. Not just the 12 program countries where we work, but all the countries where hunger persists. So this is a big vision. It's a shift in our own thinking, our own strategic action, and these folks up here are all playing a key role in this. As I said, we've been bringing people together and aligning them in the context of ending hunger for a long time. You can tell from here. This was 1978, our first hunger symposium. We're not aware of anyone else having done a hunger symposium before this one. We did them also again in 1980 at a symposium, and that was where this button was born. This is an unbranded, everybody can join ending hunger button. It has a no longer adequate address on the back. A post office box in San Francisco, don't mail there. But please take those buttons because they're wonderful. They're at the back table. We built an alliance of organizations to respond to the as yet unresponded to famines in Cambodia in 1979 and in Somalia in 1980. Valerie is here in a refugee camp in northern Kenya with Somali refugees. Both of those efforts were very successful, but they really showed that that kind of alignment in the hunger response community was badly missing. We then started really pushing on the issue of Africa and Africa leadership. You'll see Coretta Scott King here, Andrew Young, the former head of the World Bank. This was a big symposium we held in kind of my first day on staff in Martin Luther King Center in Atlanta. This was the strategy meeting with the Planning Commission of India in 1990. We weren't aware of a whole group of NGOs getting together and co-hosting meetings with the Planning Commission of the Government of India before. You'll hear more about the Government of India and this Planning Commission shortly. And then we brought together women leaders from lots of different groups in Africa and experts in HIV/AIDS and how gender inequality was fueling the spread of that disease to really help us co-design a HIV/AIDS and gender inequality workshop, to have people really given the space to think through for themselves what it takes to stop the spread of HIV. And we have subsequently been joining and playing leadership roles in dozens of alliances for nutrition, for women's rights, for girls' rights, all around the world. If you haven't visited this website, feministleadership.org, I want to plug my interview. I was so tickled to be the guy, feminist leader, who got interviewed for this. So now we have this movement, a movement of people who know that the right way to do development is to empower women and men to be the principal actors, the principal authors of their own development, and recognize the need for big changes if we're going to make that the main policy for ending hunger in our world. We so far have, I thought we had 57 global members, and I'm just told by my colleagues that they've enrolled a few more. So we're probably right about at 60 global members. And then we're starting national chapters in lots of countries, including countries where the Hunger Project has no staff or programs. So we've set up regional leaders. Daisy, who many of you know, is running East Africa, Pascal, West Africa, Roland, Southern Africa. Until recently, Lorena was running Latin America. There's a job opening there we're discussing with people. And South Asia has an existing network, Login, and Login funded by the Swiss, and so we participate from our countries in that. So now I'm going to introduce, I thought I was seeing this slide earlier, my apologies. I'm going to introduce one of my dear colleagues and a real genius at working with lots of organizations. And that's Ruchi Yadav, the program director from the Hunger Project India. Welcome, Ruchi. Okay, we're going to show the film first.
आदमी नौकरी करते पैसे भेज देते हैं, बस बजरी ढोना पड़ा है, औरतों को जाना पड़ता है, पानी के लिए औरतों को करना पड़ता है, औरतों को रास्ता चाहिए, रात को आने जाने में, खेतों के काम करने में, सब ज़रूरत औरतों को ज़्यादा होती है, औरतों को जोड़ना ज़रूरी है। हमको परेशानी यही थी, एक तो हमको मकान लगाने में रेता नहीं मिलता यहाँ। तो हमने सोचा हमारा नदी, हमारा गांव, हमारे लिए यहाँ रेता नहीं है, लोगों के लिए इतना व्यापार हो रहा है यहाँ, तो इसकी वजह से हमको खनन कार्य को रोकना पड़ेगा। सुबह तो वहाँ रेता वाले रुक गए, फिर उन्होंने रात को चालू कर दिया। फिर मैंने सोचा उसे आप क्या करें, चुपचाप बोली में किसी को मत बताना, वो टाइम जाना है करके। हम रात में खड़ा रहना, मैं जाऊँगी। फिर उसका द्वार खटखटाया, मैंने कहा चलो नदी जाना। फिर हम चुपचाप गए वहाँ नदी में बैठे रहे, इतना ठंडा कामने लग गई औरतें। फिर हमने इंतज़ार किया, गाड़ी की आवाज़ आई खड़खड़ खड़खड़ पत्थरों में। हमने किसी को रेता नहीं उठाना दिया वहाँ से। पत्थर से उनको मारा, नेपाली भाग पड़े वहाँ। फिर हमने जब छोड़ा नहीं, फिर उन्होंने फिर छोड़ी थी, फिर नहीं आए। इतने प्रधान बने हमारे गांव में, कुछ विकास नहीं है। आदमी बने, आदमी तो वैसे ही है, किसी ने विकास तो करा नहीं गांव का। गांव वालों ने कहा तू काम कर, तो मैंने सोचा ठीक है या आपकी इच्छा है तो मैं भी बनूं। मैंने बोला अपने पति को कि 5 साल तक तुम्हारा हक नहीं है मेरे को, जितना तुम्हारा हक है उतने पूरा गांव वालों के हक है, मेरे को आज़ाद छोड़ दो। आज हमारे गांव में बाहर के लोग आए हैं फिल्म बनाने के लिए, तो उनको अपने परिचय कैसा देना होगा, कहाँ के रहने वाले हो और क्या नाम हो, ये बताना है ज़रूर।
मेरा नाम लीला काला है, मैं तैली हाट की रहने वाली हूँ। और क्या कहते हैं, मेरे एक लड़की और एक लड़का है। हमारा पोस्ट ऑफिस बैजीनाथ, जिला बागेश्वर है।
नहीं तो तहसील बताया नहीं।
हाँ चलो सॉरी, गलती हो
बीडीसी ट्रेनिंग में जाती हूँ, वहाँ बोलते हैं तो हमने सब कुछ सीखा। परिचय देना, राशन रोकना है तो कहाँ हमने ऑनलाइन करना है, कैसा प्रस्ताव लिखना है। जितने ये हुए हैं, ये वार्ड मेंबर हैं, सबको बुलाती हूँ वहाँ। यहाँ से हमने वहाँ गधेरे तक लगा रखे, उधर वाले गुल बनाए और वहाँ के सुरक्षित दीवार भी बनाए गधेरे में, चौडाम बनाए इधर से वहाँ तक, और रास्ता बनाया ऊपर को गांव में। एक इधर वाला बनाया, एक उधर वाला बनाया, बस।
उसमें सारी खास बातें, जहाँ काम पीछे है वहाँ प्रधान आगे, सारे गांव को जोड़ के रखती है, ऐसी महिला हमारी प्रधान।
पहले घास हम ऐसे ही डालते थे, तमाम बर्बाद हो जाता। अब पसनार में डालते हैं तो सब खा लेते हैं।
जगह जगह पर स्टैंड पोस्ट हैं, दूर दराज किसी को जाना नहीं है।
हमारा काम भी करा, हमको रोजगार भी मिला। कमला जी ने मदद बहुत कर रखी थी।
सत्रह साल की थी तब शादी हो गई। हाँ, मेरे को 65-66 वर्ष हो गया। मैं सोचती हूँ मेरा 60 साल हो गया मेरे को, और 65 साल भी होगा तो मैं अपनी ज़िंदगी में कुछ कर सकती हूँ। यह ताकत है मेरे को।
तो बात भई ने पर मी यो कोनी भयो कि ते बात गए हम प्रेमल का सुन
प्रेमल कबेले जो
डांट अब डांट बेटी छोड़ कर बेटी हमेशा ठीक नहीं हुआ
ना, ये भन्ने प्रेमल कबे वो मान्य नहीं भाई, जब उनको डांटने भयो तब तो काम होने भाई।
उसका भी ख्याल करना हर सब बात पर, खाने में पीने में, और कोई उसको अगर झगड़े तो उसकी मदद के लिए हम जाते हैं। तो प्रेम, ये तो प्रेम ही तो हुआ दर्शाना, नहीं हुआ क्या? ये तो एब्स्ट्रैक्ट ना भाववाचक संज्ञा है ना।
घर वाले कहते हैं रात भर जगते रहते हैं वहाँ, क्या मिला तेरे को? मैंने कहा मेरे को क्या चाहिए, मेरे को नाम चाहिए। वैसे ही तो अच्छा काम करूँ फिर भी नाम आएगा, बुरा काम करूँ फिर भी नाम आएगा। पैसे मिलेगा तो वो तो फूक जाएगा, अगर नाम रहेगा तो रोजी रहेगा। मेरे सपने मेरे गांव के लिए तो बहुत अच्छा बन गया। जैसा मेरा सपना था वैसा मैंने बना दिया।
Tell us about how on earth you do that all over India.
So India is a big country, many people there. And how do we work with women like Kamla? And they're spread across India. We are working in North India, in South India, in West India, and in East India. We do it with partnership with around 40 local organizations who are located there. They understand the context, they understand the language. It's also a country which does not speak one language, so they understand the vernacular, the local dialects. I speak Hindi and English, but in Hindi, if I go to some parts of India where they are supposed to speak Hindi, I cannot understand them because the dialect is different. So it's really working with local partners, building on the wisdom they have about their communities, about the needs of their communities, and the trust they have of their communities, and really leveraging that in our work. And what we do is that we bring the principles of the Hunger Project and we align our work with their work without passing a judgment on who's better or who's superior, because it has to be on the basis of mutual respect and opening your heart and mind to what even the other person has to offer, and not really always telling people what to do. But it's through dialogue we realize there's some stuff that we don't know, that they know, there's some stuff that they don't know, and we know. So I think that's the point of convergence. And based on that, we really work with our partners, we call them partners. We conduct training camps with them, very complex and intense training camps, right from 9 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, and residential, where we really unpack what Hunger Project stands for, what we believe in, and how we take this partnership forward. And based on that, we're able to, for the last many years, we've trained almost 180,000 elected women representatives, like Kamla. And Kamla leads communities which are from 2,000 to 5,000 people. So that's really, if it multiplies, it's this one person that we invest in, one partner organization that we invest in, and then the sort of snowball effect that happens. We don't have to work with everybody on the planet. We work with the catalysts, and that's important. We work with the people who are sort of ready to bring change, who are ready to transform themselves, who are ready to commit themselves to what other people are capable of doing. And I think that's also important, that we believe in people, we believe in the capabilities. We don't start that they are from the point that they're zero. Nobody's zero. So that's how we sort of build it up. And that's all I have to say.
Great. Does anybody have a question for Ruchi? We have time for a couple of questions. Anyone?
Awesome.
Isn't it beautiful?
We have 3 more.
Yes, Marilyn? Wait for a mic.
How do you determine who is the catalyst in the community that you empower?
So in India, there's a amendment to the constitution which actually has a quota for women in village councils. So there are 50% of the village councils in India, all the village councils in India, and there are many, have by act of law have 50% women on it. So we work with these women. It's like imagine if all the state legislators in the US had 50% women. Imagine if all the boards, the corporate boards, had women on them. So these women, sometimes, and as Kamla was saying, sometimes they're homemakers, or they're businesswomen, or they've not really stepped into public office. So by default, they're there for us to work with. So they are elected, and they're elected sometimes not out of choice. Sometimes they're pushed by their families, sometimes, they're kind of maneuvered, and sometimes they're supposed to be meant to be puppets, and that's where we bring it. And you cannot be a puppet. And you saw Kamla. She told her husband, you know what? 5 years, leave me alone. So, and she is 60.
Start cutting the onions.
Yeah, and she's 65. So, you know, for her to even have that courage to say that leave me alone, I'm here on this path of change. And that's what we do in our workshops. We kind of break down these, what John talks about. That's a great video of John, if you ever get to see it on the website. I actually saw it the day it came. And he talks about really breaking down patriarchal structures and mindsets that, you know, the belief that women cannot really do anything, or I cannot do anything. So it's really overcoming that and leveraging the constitutional authority of these women for the possibilities that can be. Because these women have a lot of power. They themselves don't know it. But it's an official responsibility, it's an official position. How do we then leverage that position for changing the community and transformation? So that's what we do. And we also help women actually generally stand for elections. How you stand for elections, how you conduct yourself. Women typically never talk about the work they do. They may be doing this much and they talk about this much. Usually men, they do this much and they talk about that much. So it's really, you know, like, don't be shy. You know, go out there and present your stuff. So it's really also preparing them to really be out there openly. So you had a question?
I do. How would you distribute that to the people, the mass audience of India? What we just saw.
Oh, how would you convey this concept to the wider population of India?
So social media is a good tool. So one is of course social media. I mean the films that you're talking about right now? Or?
What we just saw.
Right, so one is these films this is the official launch of Kamala's film today, right here. It's brilliant. So this is and there are 3 more, they're still under post-production, but we got this ready for the launch today. And we plan to, of course, use various platforms. The 40 partners that we work with will also take them forward in their communities and have screenings out there. As also we're part of many networks in India where we will sort of share the movie. We have a distribution strategy. And one is social media, one is presenting it to all our donors who then are supposed to send it forward. So that's the objective. That's how we're going to do it. We're not going to have screenings in picture halls or movie halls. Very few people go there anyways now. That's why the movies are sort of mobile friendly also. A lot of people have smartphones in India and they can access the movie through that. So YouTube will be one channel that we will broadcast it on. And that's how we tend to create buzz around it on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook.
And you also mentioned what's happened with login.
Okay. All right.
This is really cool.
So what's happened is this work that we do in India with elected women representatives. It created some buzz, you know, in the region. Somebody heard about us, and they wanted to do something similar in Bhutan. So there was a group of women from Bhutan who came over, and they went on a field visit. They met some elected women, and they said, well, we want you to come and teach our women how to do this. So then eventually through a network, a logging network that THP is a part of, the Hunger Project is a part of, and that organization was also a part of in Bhutan. That's how, it's like the network played matchmaker. They needed something, we had something, and the Secretariat brought us together. And then the Hunger Project in India, we made many trips to Bhutan. And we have trained, it's a small country, it has only 700,000 people. That's the population of Bhutan. It's a drop in the ocean for India. But we trained all of their elected women representatives in local government over a period of 2 years. So that's how partnership has, it's leaped forward across boundaries, where we have taken our work. And once I go back from here, literally after 10 days, I'm on a flight to Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar, and there's another network out there which has requested us to share our work and possible partnership for the future in transforming our what Kamla does and what we do with Kamla to their women. So it's really it's an Asian footprint for the Hunger Project in the region that we are slowly moving towards. There's been also interest in Sri Lanka, but Ulaanbaatar, who would have thought of that? It's so far away. And but it's there, and these are countries which are culturally, politically, religiously very different from ours, and yet we speak a common language. And that language we are able to, the language that was given birth in this region, taken over to India, and those same principles, how they are spreading. So I think and we've become like a case study, the Bhutan and India partnership. So we recently were invited to other forums in Europe to present our work. So that's something that really, we didn't know it would happen, and it happened in the last 3 years, since 2015. So that's just a little bit for all of you to be proud of for what you started and where it has gone.
Thank you. Okay. Speaking of women getting out there, let's see. Oh, no, we're not going to show it again. Come on.
Just one more time.
Yeah, really. Okay. What is this room? UN General Assembly. And you may not be able to exactly see who's up on the big stage, but it's the first Hunger Project person ever to be up on that big stage. And it's my office mate and colleague and friend, Mary Kay Costello.
It may have been less nerve-wracking though than sitting in a room with the Close Hunger Project family. So I'm based in DC with John, so I go from the circus in DC to the circus at the UN, Women for Advocacy, and it has been a wonderful ride for 5 years. And one of the big goals that we've had with advocacy, especially leading up to the movement, has been how can we, one, raise the visibility of the Hunger Project, but also navigate many other organizations that seem to work on one particular sector or in one particular place, and really prove that all our work moves together and has a place that acts like a front and back of a hand. So I'll just have my little notes here, but we know that the Hunger Project has the 3 pillars: community-led, partner with local government, and gender focus. So thinking of the gender focus piece especially, a number of us were at the Women Deliver conference last week in Vancouver. So we came down the Pacific line to also bring back here some of the takeaways that we had from the conference. And at least from what I could gather from the advocacy perspective and the diplomatic perspective, in looking at the Women Deliver hashtag, which was this year the power of, I was thinking the power of partnerships was one of the big things. The question of what will you do with your power? And this was a place where there were 8,000 people, mostly women, came from all over the world, all different genders, different places in their countries, whether it was urban, rural, extra destitute, very, very rural, etc. And for us, it's the power of advocacy partnership also with our colleagues that sit here on, whether it's the investor side, but also my partners in India and in Malawi and in Mexico as well. And then the power of partnership that advances our program implementation. So I'll start by saying that as a person, I'm someone who loves to connect the dots between unlikely partners. If you tell me you work in an organization that focuses on open defecation, I'm like, we can figure out a way to do something with advocacy with you. Even 3 days ago at Women Deliver, I was running around in a gigantic emoji poop suit. What does that have to do with the Hunger Project? I said, well, it's one of our main advocacy partners is WaterAid, and open defecation is a major problem, and water sanitation and hygiene is something we address in our communities too. So if it takes running around in a poop suit among 8,000 people, I'll do it, heels or not. So, the big actionable question, as I said, was what will you do with your power? And personally, I said, it's very important, yes, for us to get out there and to get to this big stage. But I don't actually think that is the best reflection of what the Hunger Project is now doing as well with our power. We're instead moving over and making space for other people at that table and making sure that if we're offered an extra place to speak, well, what other colleagues of mine are going to be at the UN? Do we have someone coming in from a program office that can speak to even more nuanced detail about our work? Just because we manage the advocacy office doesn't mean that we're always the best voices to talk about all of our work. And what kinds of conversations can we always push for them to be a part of? Since I started with John 5 years ago, I don't think there's been more than 2 or so commissions or forums at the UN that we have not gotten a seat at the table. But it's not always our team that will speak there. We'll also send in submissions to make sure that we can get full UN funding for Badil, our country director in Bangladesh, to come and speak about the work in South Asia. For Daisy in Uganda, Dr. Omogashu, to come and speak on behalf of the work that's happening in Uganda. It's not enough for the Hunger Project to constantly be represented by 1 or 2 people from one particular part of the world. So we're always thinking creatively about the internal advocacy partnerships and externally. Even leading up to the formation of the Sustainable Development Goals, there was a group of 5 women from our many advocacy partnerships that we have that held a number of roundtable discussions, high-level roundtable discussions at the UN in what were called the intergovernmental negotiations. These were those 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. days where the various ministers and heads of state were negotiating the terms of the Sustainable Development Goals. And we would host discussions outside of the Hunger Project to include the 5 girls are from these orgs. It was 5 of us. We were the power group. It was Save the Children, World Vision, Water Aid, Action Against Hunger, and the Hunger Project. And we were the 5 organizations that you wanted to collaborate with if you were going to have a civil society intergovernmental dialogue on what the people wanted for these ministers and heads of state to do in the terms. And that was awesome. So for 2 solid years, always were hosting discussions that were about these integrated methodologies. It was never just about hunger. It was never just about the poop suit. It was never just about saving the children. It was always about what these many pieces coming together does in collaboration. So the other part of the work is that I came to the Hunger Project with a background in youth development and in youth leadership and engagement. And I remember I was sitting in what was then a small office in a Quaker house in DC. And I said to John, I'm really thrilled to come aboard the Hunger Project. I've been to your epicenters before, even before I had come on board. And we really have this, what I would describe to be a physics math problem for solving this very complex issue of hunger. I said, so where do the youth fit in all of this? So we don't really focus on youth, we focus on women. I said, so where do the youth fit in all of this? And he said, are you gonna bring this up every day? I said, only until we start doing it, no problem. So we ended up moving it forward through the ranks of executive leadership and talking with country offices and realizing we had some pockets of youth. Bangladesh was a great example of youth ending hunger. Benin has some fabulous pockets of youth work in more IT and rural-based focus work. But we hadn't had this big sweeping overlay of youth work. So we formed, 2 years into my time with the Hunger Project, the Youth Reference Group. And it wasn't just to be myself and the DC office that would design what a sweeping youth engagement strategy would be. It was going to be another internal partnership in the Hunger Project, whereby the reference group had to be made up of program staff that were of a youth age from our program countries, and then partner staff that were ideally from a youth age from our partner countries in the global north. And over about 1.5 to 2 years, it took us to really research a lot of the best practices and principles in youth development programming, and to figure out what the biggest priorities were for youth in our program countries. And then to actually go and conduct focus group discussions with youth and with their parents and with their district assemblymen in these areas, and come up with what will essentially be an overlay to the Hunger Project Epicenter model. It takes away nothing from what exists in the Epicenter model, but it adds youth engagement to it. But this also means we'd be targeting a whole other third of the population, and nothing comes free, right? So what are we going to do to fund that? I said, okay, well, my last work in Ghana, I had done this work with a chief. Sure, you can switch over. I had done work with a chief. As on the right, you see Dasabre Quebo, you see the 7th. He is what they call paramount chief for a state, or I guess in US terms, it would be like a county in Ghana. And if we were going to figure out a way to pilot our work, I had a few personal goals as well. Let's have it be youth-led and youth-designed. We did that. But let's also see what we can do around domestic resource mobilization. You know, we see money moving laterally out of these developing contexts, and we see that there is wealth in some of these countries as well. But what can we do to try to tap into that a little bit and show that we can possibly have investor partners as well in our program countries? So I came up with this brilliant and stressful idea of seeing what we could do to have our 2 epicenters in the central region, Taidu and Asafra, and then look at his particular township, Abiadzi Domanasi, Abiadzi State, and start piloting the youth work there. I think the numbers came out to, after a 5-year pilot for this, we'll end up reaching an extra, something major, like 70,000 people across those 3 villages. So the concept of acceleration. And but the other unique thing is it takes a while to mobilize these types of partnership in these contexts, because often though he sits in a position of political leadership, not just in his tribe, but he also is a private sector contractor, and he sits in the National House of Chiefs. But why does this work? How does a 30-year-old white girl from Boston, Massachusetts, how does that person convince a rural chief in Ghana that we possibly could ever need funds from within Ghana? And I think it all really did go back to how I had worked on the field in Ghana before. And it is very similar, if not identical, to how the Hunger Project works in the field now. And that's why I was able to connect those dots. I was 20 years old when I was asked to go and design a program in Ghana. And I was sat down at a table with Dasabre, 3 youth my age who were at uni, males, Muslim. And I was this young white girl from Boston who was meant to be the program director. And I'm sitting there with the CEO, and they're like, okay, well, this is the person who's gonna help design everything and implement it. And they were like, sure. So instead of me going in and being bossy over, which is such a sexist term, I think, but anyway, me going in and being bossy and saying, I'm the program director, this is how we're going to do it. Instead, I was like, I'm the American, this isn't my village, teach me how to reform your area. I'll help you do logistics and get things going on time. I'll help manage our relationships with the people that are within the local tribal leaders, since they expect that someone who's in a director position maintains those relationships. But you'll be the ones who do these very important conversations with people in the village and build the trust with the people. You won't often find me leading the classroom discussions. It will really be the rest of the staff. And it ended up working incredibly well. After 3 years, we had halved the teen pregnancy rate, and we were only in our early 20s. And these were locals in Ghana who weren't even from this particular village. So it was a product of this chief having invited us there, but it wasn't just my own ability to have cross-cultural abilities with the chief and the people. It was concerning them and the local people in the programmatic approaches, in the community engagement. So it started as this small initiative, ended up becoming something that I didn't write, the community members themselves wrote. So when I went back to him and I said, I'm with the Hunger Project, you know the Hunger Project. You were there when President Rawlings launched this in Ghana in 2004, I believe it was. 2004 when we scaled in Ghana, 1996, long ago. You can trust that this is how I know the program will be operated, and I can tell you honestly, this is how the Hunger Project operates. We need $1 million over 5 years. And he had these grand ideas. We'll go to the president and said, stop, that's too slow. Asking for politicians to move in these contexts is not going to work. If World Vision is not getting money and they're a $3 billion organization, then we're not going to get your president to move. I said, you know people. I want 5 of your richest friends in Ghana that are not cronies or corrupt. Make sure that they're not an extractives business, and that we can really be proud of the private sector or monetary contributions they've made in their own life. I want 5 of your friends over 5 years to contribute $50,000. And we'll give them the numbers every year of what the youth are doing. And maybe they'll be running for office, maybe they won't, but their name's not going to go on top of any epicenters. But they are going to, instead of moving their $50,000 every year out to Swiss banks, they're going to keep it inside Ghana. They are going to be the people who are going to say that we helped change the youth population in Ghana. This is what you're going to do for me. We're not going to be able to probably build an epicenter in your area, because frankly, Dasabray's area is decently developed, but we'll be doing mobilization there. We'll be able to bus people from Asafra and Taidu to your computer center that's there and start doing IT training with our adults and our youth. I said, Ghana was the first country that spearheaded Black people and Africans coming out of slavery. Let your people be the ones taking them out of slavery now too. Enough of all of the money always only coming from the north. We want money coming from both places now, and we can do that. He said, so let's do it. He's like, yeah, let's try to do that. So by July, again, this has gotten pushed back now for about a year. It's been difficult to move it through all these different spaces because we started first with the idea of political partnership and money coming from politics. And now we had the discussion a month or two ago about domestic resource mobilization in Ghana through the private sector there, and having our private partners be able to fund this new youth initiative that will accelerate the Hunger Project programming from up to 9 years, hopefully down to a solid 6 or 7, and reach this very important generation of youth that we need to make sure the Hunger Project work stays relevant and responsible across the decades while we see youth moving to cities. And it's all in the power of partnerships that we have formed now in Ghana, but that have come from the past in our work, and then also in seeing what we can do to highlight these people on the UN stage, because we've proven that we can sit at these very high places at the UN as well. So the power of partnerships has worked macro and micro, and will continue to do so as long as we're making it happen at the Hunger Project. So thank you for that partnership.
Okay, so this is halftime, so everybody please stand up. Wiggle your fingers. Wiggle your arms. Make sure that the circulation is happening and you're up for another, the second half of this. And then sit down, take out your cell phones, and we're going to do another word cloud. Okay. So one word of what you've gotten so far in this session. Yep, that's fine. One word at a time. Pile them into the word cloud. That's a good word. It's a good Scrabble word. It's 11 points without even third, maybe a little more than a third. That's awesome. So when we started taking up this serious commitment to widespread adoption, we had this golden opportunity to do so, and so much of what we've done was in oral tradition. So when a group of us, Rollins, who's country director now, regional director for the Hunger Project Southern Africa, we had a meeting to sort of pull out all of that wisdom and knowledge. The human being in whose head all that was is this gentleman here, Mackenzie Nkalapa, who is program director of the Hunger Project Malawi. So, Mackenzie, why don't you tell them what's on these slides, and then I'll go through them one at a time.
Thank you so much. As a Hunger Project, when we go to an area, the first thing is to work with the community and see what is missing in that community. For example, what you are seeing there, when you go to an area, we feel that maybe there's a health facility which is missing, we're able to construct, or maybe people, when they are conducting their meeting, they are conducting under the tree, we construct a meeting hall, or else maybe there's no nursery school where young children can come together and learn and get an early education. We're able to construct the nursery school. So what is happening there is now we are creating structures which are missing in that area so that people in that area should have an improved livelihood. So that is what is happening there, construction of missing infrastructure.
Okay, what's happening there?
And the epicenter strategy has the 4 phases. The first phase, we mobilize the community, where we build capacity of the community to know or to be able to carry out various activities. The second phase is now the construction which you have seen from the first slide, now creating missing infrastructures. The third phase is now the implementation of the various programs, like what he was saying about the youth program, the food security, and the other programs which we are able to implement. The fourth phase is now creating a structure which will continue to sustain the work which we have left there. For example, we are able to come up with an organization, a local non-governmental organization, which takes over when the hunger project leaves the area. So what you are seeing there, this was the day where we are marking that now we have reached the point where hunger project can leave the area. So we invited the Minister of Local Government, the one in that short sleeve, that he was unveiling the flag, signifying that this epicenter has now reached maturity. The hunger project can move out, and we have an governmental organization we have left with the board of trustees to take over all the works which the hunger project was doing in that area for 8 years or 5 years, depending on the period which we have agreed with the investors.
How many of the centers in Malawi are now self-reliant?
Out of the 12 epicenters, we have 4 epicenters. For the 3 epicenters, we have already done the celebration. The 4th epicenter, we are doing the celebration on the 1st July this year. You are invited.
Okay. So tell me what's happening in this picture.
Let me join Ruchi, who is working with the various organizations in India. Hunger Project Malawi is again working with various organizations under community-led development. So this was the day when we are launching the community-led development. We had the World Vision International and the other organizations. So what you are seeing there, these are panelists from local government and other ministers who are responding to various questions from journalists on how they are going to implement or to support community-led development activities.
We don't always pull it off this way, but they were doing their strategy meeting live on television. And they had the Minister of Permanent Secretary of Local Government promise to work with them to scale up these strategies live on public television. So that's about, you can watch this, it's recorded. Okay, tell me about this. So, how many people in the room are from Australia? Okay, so there are people from the neighboring country, a much bigger country. I don't know if you can see, but this little country by the lake, Malawi, and then this much bigger country, Zambia, is next door. Yes. And there's a wonderful family. The wife had grown up 4th generation Zambia. She had moved to Australia and married very well, and they're very wealthy, and they want to give back. And the way they wanted to give back was to have the Hunger Project come to Zambia. Now, to start a new country, of the Hunger Project doing it by itself is a fairly long, slow, laborious project, but by this time, As you saw before, we had these really strong partners. So we are going for the first time to have the Hunger Project Epicenter strategy adopted, integrated with elements from other people's strategies, namely Heifer initially, and a youth group called Restless Development. And so they have co-created this. And what they did was they grilled this guy for days to pull out all the wisdom of how to do this. So tell me a little bit about this process, Mackenzie.
As John has said, the Hunger Project Malawi, we are working, or we are extending our arm into our neighboring country, which is Zambia. And this time around, we are using, or we'll be working with the Restless, Heifer International, to implement various activities. Our role as Hunger Project Malawi is to coach this organization how they are going to implement the epicenter strategies. So we were in Zambia meeting the organization like Heifer, Restless, so that we coach them, we introduce the strategy so that they should take it over and implement with the support from the Australian family, which is supporting with the resources.
So this is officially launching in early October. You're probably invited to that as well. This is the first time this has happened in Africa. Our methodology blended not only with the skills of other organizations, but a big pile of their money is going into this program. So this is a very exciting step forward. Before we move on, any questions of either Mary Kate or Mackenzie before we move on? Yes, sure.
How old are the youth when you say the youth?
So, the UN dubs youth to be 15 through 24. We have also been collecting data on youth in recent years in the same bracket. This particular new programming will go from 15 up to 30 because the Africa Charter and a few other reputable sources in split off agencies, the UN, and the AU, etc., now dub youth to be up to around 30, and this is really also sometimes when youth are finally finished with their secondary school or still requiring employment and skills building and leadership trainings. So this particular programming will be up until 30, and we'll adjust the collecting age numbers accordingly as well for that.
Okay, one more.
What were you saying when you were there? Oh, sorry. What were you saying when you were up in front of the General Assembly?
This is a good story.
I have a funny meme that we've done with it, where my arms are up, and I'll explain it, but the meme just says, could you please just stand up for gender equality? Like, it's just not a big deal, just please stand up. The full story is that for 3 years, the Hunger Project was a big advocacy partner with UN Women and several other organizations to do a youth commission at the same time as the Commission on the Status of Women. So the Commission on the Status of Women is institutionalized in the UN, but there was never a strong youth component to it. So we put together a youth forum head and compiled, usually in a long, sleepless, overnight, 2-night session, a big outcome document of what globally youth were asking for in the official outcome document from the Commission on the Status of Women. So in the second year of CSW, they asked us to step up in front of all the delegates and name all of the highlights that youth are asking for that will go into the outcome document. And within that, we literally asked for all the delegates to stand up for youth and gender equality in that. And we stood next to WAGS, World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, and particularly partial having been a Girl Scout since I was 15. And the third that we stood with in presenting the document was a representative of indigenous communities in Cameroon.
It was cool. Yes. Laura? Mike is coming.
This is for Mackenzie. So as we go into this collaboration to go into Zaire, I mean Zambia, that's a mistake this morning, didn't I, with you? Zambia. In those partnerships, do they then take on the basic principles of the Hunger Project? Do we train them in our methodology? Is it a combination of these two things? Do we bring it together and merge it? I'm not real, or is it just this messy process we're all kind of figuring out as we go along?
Thank you so much. What we do is we train them so that they follow the methodology or the center strategy, so that whatever is implemented is a replica of what is happening in any other Hunger Project programs. That's why time and again, either me or the country director or M&E officer, we travel to Zambia to check. So if you are told they are following what we really train with them as part of coaching, so that they should only depart from the center strategy. Yeah.
The other, it's Epicenter Plus. So Heifer has this whole expertise in like dairy development and value chain, and so they're going to add that to the Epicenter strategy. Restless Development has done a whole youth campaign, so they're adding that to the Epicenter strategy. So it's a co-creation. But Suzanne organized a meeting in Washington, and this was very cool. She presented the Hunger Project's principles, took out our little bookmark that has our 10 principles on it, and then Heifer pulled out their bookmark and it had almost exactly the same principles on it. Literally the same format bookmark. They call them cornerstones instead of principles, but literally you could hold them up to the light. And but it was a process because the wordings are a little different. So there's human work that needs to scientifically and rigorously be done to reveal the commonality of the human heart and the human intention, the deep-seated commitment to human dignity that everybody at some point has signed up for, and then we get all organizational about it. But these principles are deep in the soul of the human spirit. And so if you can have people realize their fundamental alignment, then this kind of organizational partnership becomes possible. Thank you. Okay, yes, Jim. And then we're going to move on.
Thank you. Mackenzie, in the program where you had the different folks on live TV having their planning meeting, gee, that's pretty original. Who came up with that idea?
I think Roland's did. Yeah, Roland's our country deputy's there, and it was paid for by World Vision, and their communications director was there. So it emerged from a partnership that Roland's has established with World Vision and other big organizations there in Malawi.
Okay, and then just also I'm curious to know, what was the intention?
Oh, so the intention was what happened. That is to get a initial commitment by these big, important people to help scale up this kind of bottom-up, women-centered, rural integrated development.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Now, so here we are in Mexico. How many here have visited Mexico? Bigger number. It's like right down the street, right? And so I'm really pleased to hand this over to Sylvia Hernandez, who's going to tell us what's happening with this effort in Mexico.
So, 2030, right? 10 years and a half, might seem much, might seem not so much. We're standing in, and we're convinced of ending hunger, right? We're all here because of that. So we also know that we need to leverage to create alliances so that the communities, so that the people, especially women in parts of the world can put their voices in these decision-making spaces. So here in Mexico, what we have been working is with the community-led development chapter in Mexico, and well, it's two parts. First, alliances are everywhere, right? And as for the communities where we work with indigenous rural communities, they keep working. They keep being our allies for their self-reliant future. They keep working, and we know that they will continue working with or without us. What right now we need to do, especially in Mexico with this new government, is to create a new possibility. We need to create this enabling environment so that the communities can have the word. So what I don't know, I'm sure maybe you know, that on December the 1st last year, we changed to a new government. It was a great opportunity because for the first time in many years, this new government had the same vision as us as organization, as the Hunger Project. That is to put people in the center, to make the poor have voice again. And it has been a great opportunity. However, it has also been a challenge because with this new government, civil society is not well seen. We are seen as the ones that are corrupted, as the ones that are intermediaries within the poor. We're just delivering things to the poor, and so our spaces to dialogue, our spaces to continue putting all of the experience, not just of the Hunger Project, but of many organizations that have been working with community-led development through years, are getting shut. So what we have done is that with this new government, they have been working in the National Development Plan. It has been one of the main tasks. Thank you, Jeff. One of the main tasks. I forget sometimes words. I'm so sorry. One of the main tasks is to do this National Development Plan, and of course has to have the voice of all the citizens. So as the movement for community-led development, right now we are 21 organizations that are actively participating. We have been monitoring the whole process, and it started with us making a pronouncement regarding how this has to be. It has to be with which methodology were they going to ask for the input for the citizens, not only for urban citizens, but also for rural communities, for indigenous communities, where they speak a different language. So we were speaking our voice of how should that methodology was going to be, and that the government had to tell us that methodology so that citizens could be aware of that. So after that, the next point, the next step we have was to make another pronouncement of 14 points that this development plan should have. It should be transparent. There should be all the mechanisms to be sure that what the citizens all over Mexico were their priorities, they should be taken into account, and also the ones that were not going to be taken into account for the government to say why are they not going to be in the national plan. So at these first two stages, it was just really close organizations with us making voice about this. The 21 organizations from the movement and citizens like regular citizens. In the last part that has actually happened like two weeks ago, the development plan has to be delivered to the Chamber of Deputies. It's part of the law, so they can revise it and they can approve it and then make the modifications that are need to be done. It is important important to highlight that this process mainly is responsibility of the Ministry of, I forgot the name. Of public credit. So what happened is that now we have two documents. One that has been done by the Ministry of Public Credit, and the other that has been done by the President. The document that has been presented by the President is a 64-page document that doesn't take into account all of the things that are stated in the law. And it's the one that is going to be revised by the Deputy Chamber. So what we have done, what we did in the movement was to again see the need to leverage our voice and say this cannot be happening. We're talking about community-led development. We're talking about the importance of participating, of citizens participating in our own development, especially for this plan that is going to be the lead for 6 years, right? So we cannot be just taken in the side and just decide what some small group see where the country is going to be. So we shared it in different spaces, and a first cut was made just 2 days ago, June 7th, or 3 days ago, I don't know. And 197 organizations and institutions have subscribed it. When we first launched it, we just had 7 or 8 organizations subscribing it, and we were really worried. Also, we are worried because in this context where civil society is seen as the corrupted one, as the ones that are just being intermediaries, just being 7 or 8 organizations taking this pronouncement was really dangerous, because we could be marked, we could be jeopardized, our work could be jeopardized. Because also they are, in this moment, the government is saying that no, any funds are going to be given to civil society organizations. Many organizations, many small organizations are in survival mode. So there's also this kind of fear about, if I sign this, me as organization can be jeopardized. But what is really important is that as development is integral, as we have seen with the SDGs and everything, it's not just only organizations talking about community-led development. It's about environmental organizations, it's about childhood organizations, it's about a lot of organizations that know that if we don't make noise right now, when it's in this deputy chamber where it is going to be approved, if we don't talk directly with these deputies that can make a change, this is going to lead the next 6 years. So right now, and this is the importance of alliances, it's not just one organization saying this is not good, this is not going to work. Right now we are 197 organizations telling the president this is not going to work like this. And also, I want to highlight that it's not just this sweet speech. It's really hard. It's really hard to pass through egos. It's really hard to pass through my vision of my organization vision is about this and that. It's really hard because we all want to put our piece. But right now, what we have done is to see the big picture. And we actually, next week, we are going to do a press conference about this, to continue inviting organizations and citizens and local organizations, because we're not right now just talking about these big organizations that are in Mexico. We're also talking about organizations, about local organizations, about organizations that are not constituted legally, but they are organizations. So all of this is happening, and this is the time where we have to put all of our efforts for the next 6 years. If we do not do that, if this does not happen, so everything that we have been working through the years as civil society organizations is going to be stopped. And it's not about us as organizations, because we also are citizens, right? It's not one or the other. And our main goal is to, by 2030, we will disappear because we will not be needed anymore as civil society organizations. But right now, if we want for the community to have these spaces for them to talk, this is the perfect time to get these alliances done and just leverage each and any effort that is being done in Mexico.
Woohoo. Yes.
Okay, any questions of Sylvia? Yes, Scott. Mike is coming.
Yeah. This is a question for you, but it probably could be a question for all of the people up there. And as you hear so much about the cartels and the corruption in Mexico, how big of an issue is that, the corruption and the cartels?
Both are quite big issues. We cannot be blind about them. Actually, one of the main purposes of this new government is to fight corruption directly. And that's a good point, because also we're not enemies, right? So we can continue talking about corruption, about this. It is happening, but also what we are encouraging always is that can be stopped. I'll go right now about the cartels and everything, but with corruption it starts with all of us. So it's also about not giving money to the police. It's also about not taking the easy path. So we are always inviting people to do that, and it happens that also it's one of the priorities of the government. So I think it's possible to make it happen, to end corruption, and also not in 6 years. We're not going to change Mexico in 6 years. It would be so naive for us to think that it's going to happen, but there are a lot of things that can be moved forward in these 6 years with good and strategic alliances. And about the drug cartels, they are still there, and I will love to give you a hopeful answer about that. They are there. They are going to be there. No, I don't think forever, but they are also right now like really setting. Yeah, they're not as active as in other times. So for now, we are in a good place to continue working.
Great, thank you. Okay. Now, one of the big challenges in this widespread adoption is that we really do have to change a lot of people's mindsets. And that one of the things that those of us who were around in 1977 may remember, we pulled, I just spent months going through these big, long, boring studies to pull out those nuggets of evidence to show that hunger could be ended. And so compiling the evidence is a huge challenge, and we need to do it. It's something we really need to do. And then, as always happens, we committed ourselves to doing that, and then the miracle happened. And we met this next lady, Gunjan, and she will tell you about this process. So just tell me when to change slides. Yeah?
Sure.
Oops, wrong direction.
Okay. Oh, that's how I got to the Hunger Project. But before that, I'm
the newest person here. I just joined the Hunger Project on the 1st of February. My first day was in Mexico with Sylvia and her team. And as Jim likes to say, I see Jim sitting there, he likes to say that my best introduction is that the first person I met in the Hunger Project was Jim. So, but as I was listening to everybody here, and I don't know if anybody else, I'm sure some people here will share my sentiment, it's like, wow, which I saw there. There's such great work happening, there's such great work. In India, we saw Kamala, talking to how the strength is in her at 65. We heard about the epicenters in the UN. In Mexico, I was there. My first day was, like I said, in Mexico, and we saw it. And how do we get the evidence for all of this together to show the world? This is what happens when you put communities front and center. This is the kind of transformation that you see women standing up and saying, my voice matters, I will continue to speak, I will continue to act, I will continue to make change in my communities, right? What is the evidence of that? But I have another slide up here, and I think that's really about my journey to the Hunger Project and how did I get here. It really started with Saida Hamid, who's a board member. And I met Saida 15 years ago for the first time. And it's almost like...
Tell people who she is in the world.
Oh, yes. So, Saida is a women's rights activist. She is also somebody who has spent her life working for women's rights, particularly Muslim women's rights in India. She was the first woman to perform a nikah, which is the Muslim marriage, which is never done by women, it's done by men qazis, so she broke that taboo, she performed that nikah. She was a member of the National Commission for Women in India, and then she was a member of the Planning Commission of India, where she was a minister and responsible for the civil society government interface. So, I met Saida 15 years ago, and it's almost like life has come full circle because I met her when I was creating a collaborative community-led initiative in the northeast of India. So some of you may know, but the northeast of India is a very distinct place from the rest of the country. The 7 states that you see, that slide. John, are you going to point? Thank you. So,
the other side of Bangladesh.
Yes. Between Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar, different ethnically, different culturally, different language, customs, anything and everything. And the distance is not just physical, because if you see there's this very small slice of land that connects the northeast to the rest of India. That distance is also emotional and with very good reasons. So that region is essentially home to a bunch of tribal communities who have traditionally been at loggerheads with each other. I was 8 years old when I saw my city, the city I lived in, Ahmedabad, in Western India, so that's completely the other side, transform overnight and be consumed by violence. I saw people who had lived and shared stories, lives, births, deaths, everything, killing each other. And I didn't understand, hiding under a bench in my school with a stone pelting mob surrounding us, that is what I wanted to understand, what drove these people. So in my early 20s, I was working with a women's organization in the Northeast. And this is an area where we have something called the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. This act allows the army to search, arrest, and shoot any person on mere suspicion, and no action can be taken on the armed person who's done that. In 2004, a woman was picked up, and the next day her dead body was found. She had been raped and sexually assaulted. And this wasn't new. This has happened many times, but it was one too many times. So the whole state, and that's the state of Manipur, you can see a small state there just bordering Myanmar, rose up in protest. Complete chaos, violence, everything stopped, no food, no essential medicines, nothing was there. So I went there to understand what was happening and realized there are 5 main ethnic groups in that state. And all of them wanted the same thing. All of them were facing the same thing. Women being picked up, raped, men being killed on their suspicion. So much happening. but none of them were able to speak to the government together because they were not in this together. So the idea was, can we create a citizens collaborative which has people from each one of them? And we did. For the first time in the history of Manipur, people from all those 5 communities were in the same room working together to tell the central government and the state government, this is what the people of Manipur want, this is what needs to be done. And I still remember, it's so weird, but the first time when I tried to have those meetings, I had to book adjoining rooms in the hotel because they would not be in the same hotel room. Because if they were, when they went back to their communities, they would be killed. So they could not sit in the same hotel room with each other, to the point 3 months later, when all of them were working together day in and day out, to make sure that their communities and the government understood what is it they wanted. Anyway, that's a long story, but the idea being that in this process, Saida was in the Planning Commission. I carried these voices of the people of Manipur to the Planning Commission to get the government and the Prime Minister to the state, which we managed to do. Saida got the Prime Minister to the state. He met with the women of Manipur. He promised to change things. A lot happened. A lot didn't happen, as we all know. Government promises don't always deliver. But at the end of it, Saida invited me to come and work with her in the Planning Commission. And that's really the journey of. So
well, and then she wrote us and said, hire this woman.
Yes, so all this, a decade or 15 years later actually, no, a decade later, here I am with the Movement for Community-Led Development, so going back to it. But what is it that we're doing? So we saw all this great work that was happening, and all of you, a lot of you have been to the project areas, right? How many people in this room have been to one or the other Hunger Project site? Seen some of the work? Any place? Community? Okay. I did, like I said, on my first day. So we all know the change, right? We see it, and then we see it when we see Kamla in the film. But there's skeptics out there. There are lots of people, and we're working with the movement with 58 partners in countries across the world. We have 11 national chapters where we're trying to convince the national governments this is what you need to do. MK goes to the UN and talks to the world about how you need to adopt a gender-focused community-led development approach. My colleagues do it in their own countries sitting here. But every time, what is the evidence? How do we know? And I wish we could take all of them to our communities and show them this is why you need to do it, but unfortunately that doesn't happen, and it's often dismissed as a word that I kept hearing in the Planning Commission. If there was one word, I think, in my 5 years at the Planning Commission that I heard most, it was anecdotal evidence. Right? You see it, you hear it, you experience it, but it is anecdotal. It is not scientifically rigorous enough. So we need to convince them. What do? We need to find the scientific way of getting the evidence to show them, okay, this is what can happen. Because we know community-led development is right. We know it's necessary. We need to show the world it works. So last year, John and a group of people from the movement met with people from the World Bank. We have a community-driven development program at the World Bank. And this came up that there is a need at this point, really, we are ready for transformation. There is a need to show the world this, and that's how the study came about, and I came in here. So we started out, and I remember the terms of reference for the study, and it said, get together 100 evaluation reports from different partner organizations and analyze the evidence. And I looked at John and I was like, how on earth am I going to get these 100 evaluation reports from partners? And it was like, no, we'll aim for 100, we'll get 50, and that should be fine, right? Okay, today we are at 350 reports from 50 countries, and the only reason we've stopped at 350 is because we had to tell partners, thank you very much, we'll take all the other reports for phase 2, let's just do phase 1 with this much. So, how and why did this happen? I think the study, like everything else that we saw here, in some ways embodies the spirit of collaboration. If we have the courage to collaborate, then we can make a difference. One of our partners from the movement has this beautiful status message that I love to quote. It's an old Spanish proverb. I'll say it in English. I only know it in English. The difficult we do immediately. The impossible takes a little longer. So, as part of my work, I started calling up all the monitoring, evaluation, research, and learning directors of our partner organizations. And as all of you may know, we have organizations that are small in one country that work with some communities. And then we have huge global partners, BRAC, Oxfam, World Vision, CARE, Save the Children, right? So started calling them up to ask them if they would be willing to share their reports with us. But applied the first principle of collaboration. We didn't just ask, we listened. So we asked them, this is what we think is needed, this is what we are planning to do, what do you think? And each one of those 57 MERL directors, forgive the lingo, it's a short form because monitoring, evaluation, research, and learning is quite a mouthful. So the people who are supposed to be the custodians of this evidence turned around and said, that's brilliant, we need to do this, yes we are with you, we'll send you all our evaluation reports. You know what? You will not find anything in there. You will not see this impact that you experience, that we experience in our field every day in our evaluation reports, because this is not captured. Because in our evaluation reports, we have fixed deliverables that we measure. How many children were enrolled in schools? What is the length of the road that was built? Was the health center constructed? What is the maternal mortality? Easy to measure, easy to see, get answers. Take to donors, institutional donors. But what you saw Kamla doing out there, stopping the sand mafia, that wasn't a part of the program because it wasn't visualized, right? It happened. That's not there. That's just not there. When you see what we saw with Sylvia in Mexico, women standing up and saying, our voice matters and we won't shut up, that's not measured. That's not there. So everybody had the same frustration. How do we measure this? If we can measure this, then we can show the world. Otherwise, the reports will say nothing. And we actually had an evaluation last year that came out and said exactly this. Oh, it sounds great, it doesn't do anything. So, we applied the second principle of collaboration and partnership. We listened and we responded. We changed our research questions. I forgot to tell you to change the slides, sorry. So we had started out with 2 questions. That's it, thank you. Where has CLD worked and in what context? And do we see sustainability, self-reliance, gender equality, and governance when we apply a gender-focused community-led development approach to programming? This is what we started out with. Context was important because some people were working in Syria, some were working in Afghanistan, some were working in Haiti, some were working like us in Malawi. Post-disaster, conflict, humanitarian, there's so many different things. We wanted to understand what is happening in those different settings, but now we knew that we could not do this. So we changed the research agenda and we added a third question. How do we measure this impact of CLD? Great, we have a brilliant research agenda. Everyone wants the answers, everybody is looking, how are we getting the answers? I am not an MERL specialist. And even if I was, one person cannot create a framework for global application. One person will never, or even an organization would not understand the nuances of every setting and context and try to do it. So what do we do? And where do we get the resources to do this, to create this? Well, apply the third principle of collaboration, sharing. So, we went to our partner organizations. All these 58 MERL directors who had been extremely frustrated and passionate on the phones and Skype calls and personal meetings when they talked about this, and asked them, we've changed the research agenda. We know we need to do this, but will you partner with us on this? Will you contribute your time and actually work on this? And guess what? They said yes. So now we have 35 MERL directors and specialists from 23 global organizations who every week spend anything between 30 minutes to 8 hours of their time working on this research. 30 minutes, 1 hour, doesn't sound like too much of time. But put it in the context of that each of them has their own work already overfull. They have appointments going on, and despite that, they work on this. Not just that, they are now taking the initiative in this. So next week, we are at Interaction Forum in Washington, D.C., which is like this huge conference of policymakers. And we are announcing the study for the first time publicly there. And we're not doing it at a PhD session, because one of our partners came forward and said, you know what, this is important. We have a session at Interaction, why don't you use it to announce the study? We needed more resources to do this. Another partner, World Vision, came forward and they spoke to the Catholic University. So we have a team of interns led by a professor who's working every week on these studies from Catholic University. People are stepping up, people are owning pieces of it. And that's really the fourth principle of collaboration that MK talks about. We share the stage, we share the stage. So all the people based on their 35 people in there, everybody has different areas of expertise. Based on that, we've created 3 subgroups. These subgroups all own one part of the research. All of them are working and co-creating one aspect of the research. And in doing so, they're also thinking of how do we take this forward. It's no longer the Secretariat, the Hunger Project, which is the Secretariat for the movement, which needs to think about it. So, sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, but I think every few days, one of them will send us a proposal and say, oh, there's a call for proposal, there's a proposal possibility, let's raise funds. I can even get funds to get research from here. That's great, but that's what we wanted to see, the ownership which is happening. And that's possible because they see momentum, they see how we are always responding and how we're getting results. And what happens when we connect all these dots and everybody comes together? The world takes notice. So we've spoken, USAID, World Bank, everybody that we speak to is like, I've got our eyes on the research. I remember all of us our entire DC team was sitting with Greg Collins from USAID for our meeting.
World Bank. He was with World Bank.
Greg Collins?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Greg Collins. I was thinking of Scott. Sorry,
No.
Greg Collins from, yes.
Yes. We were talking about the work that we were doing, all of us, and then we talked about the study, and then he looks at me and he goes like, that's the job I want, right? So people take notice because they recognize it is not one point of view. They recognize that if so many organizations are working on this collectively, there is a merit in that. And so that brings me to Scott. We've managed to create an advisory group of implementation experts and academics who are again spending time on this on a monthly basis to ensure that the research, when it comes out, we have the backing of academia. So nobody can turn around and say, oh, but you've taken people's stories into account. That's not rigorous enough. To avoid that. So we have people like Scott Guggenheim, who John likes to call the Mike Jagger of community-led development. He was with the World Bank and he was the senior advisor to the president of Afghanistan, was responsible for setting up huge community development-led development projects in different countries, Afghanistan, Indonesia. We have academics who specialize in different evaluation methodologies, all of them working together, and we hope that by October, we will have created for the first time a landscape of CLD programming globally to show the world what is happening, how are we doing CLD programming, what are the different ways, what are the different features, and to learn ourselves from it. And in phase 2, we would have come up by then with some information to show what happens when you do this. To share the stories of Kamla and others like her. Because at the end of the day, the organizations who are a part of the movement, we are all also a community. And all of us sitting in this room, we're a community of people who believe that we can end hunger and poverty by 2030. And we're a community of people who believe that this is the way to do it. And so now it's time to just mobilize our resources and show the world. Yes, this is how we do it.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you all. This is I would type in wow also. So we have this challenge that it's June. What happens in June? Weddings. Weddings. And there's going to be one in this room very soon. So we're going to need to bring this to a close shortly. But before we do, I want to call upon our VP for Global Fundraising, Jenna Recuber, for some logistical information. And no, we're going to, because there's going to be a wedding. But there'll be time we can stand in the hallway as we tear down the room and answer questions. Okay, Jenna.
So this is just a reminder that this evening's gala is at the Hotel Irvine, and I hope many of you are joining us and excited.
Yeah!
It begins at 6 o'clock p.m. There's valet and self-parking. The cocktail hour will be outdoors, so bring a shawl, sunscreen if you need. There's a business networking event happening if you're interested in that. See a volunteer or a greeter, and they'll be able to, that's during the cocktail hour, they'll be able to point you in the right direction. We are also having a Sunday celebration luncheon from 10:30 to 12:30, and tickets are still available online for $45 if you haven't gotten yours yet. Thanks, everyone.
And these folks, well, some of these folks are speaking tonight, so you'll get to hear them. Okay, Phil, go.
I just want to thank you all for the courage you brought forth for us today. I've been with the Hunger Project since 1978. A lot of other people in the room have been around for a long time, and I just want you to know that we were on the streets speaking with no agreement about the end of hunger in those times. Invited Jim here and Dwight were with me, and the courage that you're facing with no agreement is actually an idea whose time has come. You are being an idea whose time has come. We in this room are an idea whose time has come. And that context is what's going to show up what we have all stood for. And it will happen in our lifetime. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. If you want to make one more word cloud, you have 2 minutes to do it. And but thank you all for being here. Thank you for all that you've invested year after year, your love, your money, your time in having us be the Hunger Project that we are. Thank you all.